Welcome to another edition of Around with Randall, your weekly podcast on making your nonprofit more effective for your community. And here is your host, the CEO and founder of Hallett Philanthropy, Randall Hallett.
As always, I'm honored that you take a few minutes of your day to join me, Randall, on this edition of Around with Randall. I want to jump into a subject that 10 years ago I would have argued is invasion of privacy, and yet today I think is standard and something that we have to make a norm as a part of what we do in our communication relationship building process, and that's texting. As the evolution of communication continues in the world, I see it all the time. People are, unfortunately, at times, I believe, spending more and more moments of their day with their noses in their phone. Texting is a big part of that. I would argue that the messaging that you do on some of the social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram and other things like that, videos aside, is along the same lines. People are gathering more of their connection to the world, to others, through artificial means. And I don't mean artificial intelligence. I mean, it's not face-to-face. I'm old school. I enjoy being in front of people. But at the end of the day, we have to morph to where people are in everything that we do, particularly as it pertains to philanthropy and the relationship building process. What we want to talk about today is how to do this in a meaningful, productive, and respectful way. At the end of the day, we want to try to reinforce the ideas of donor impact, donor connection, stewardship. How do we really give a sense of attentiveness to people that are using these means and modes of what I'll call phone communication, texting, as a large part of their connection to who we are and maybe where their world is. At the same time, we have limited resources. So at the end, we'll get into some of the options that may be available to you to maximize this without doing 5,000 texts per month individually, which is not really feasible. As I mentioned at the top, 10 years ago, I would have believed this was invasion of privacy, that the texting that occurs on a regular basis much of the time is unwanted. I might have been a little less wrong then, but I'm definitely, if I were to hold true to that today, totally wrong in the modern world of communication. Most of us have received texts from unknown people on a regular basis that we know are what I would classify as spam. It happens to me quite frequently. I don't know how somebody got my cell phone number, but they keep texting me, asking me if I want to sell my house. Let me answer that for the world. No. The next move I make is, I guess, a burial plot in the backyard. I'm not going anywhere. But boy, people seem to send me texts all the time, and you get all kinds of crazy texts, and obviously there are scams out there doing the same. So we've created an environment where people will most naturally connect to the world through texting. And so we have to find a more effective way of doing this. And in doing so, we have to also realize that with digital saturation, we have to stand out. So let's start with kind of the philosophical, why texting matters. Well, why is this something we have to master? So interestingly enough, different studies, Statista is a different or interesting website that does a lot of tracking around different statistics. They say that Americans check their phone 96 times a day. Now, I don't think they're checking it for the stock information or what the markets are doing for half of that. Much of the time, it's about communication in some way, shape, or form. So I mentioned at the top, I would throw Facebook and other things into this and how people choose platforms to communicate. That if we don't do this, people are spending more and more time with their phone. And what we also know is that the open rate or the willingness to read rate from text to email is significantly different. Mobile Quarter did a study and found that 98% of the open rate occurs in texting, meaning only 2% of the time someone's not at least looking or reading the text. Email open rates are 20 to 30%. So if we're just talking about getting in front of people, texting is more than 3, possibly 4 times more efficient, more engaging, at least in terms of getting a message in front of someone. We also know when we talk about generations that younger generations are increasingly depending on their phones. And so we might look at it from the standpoint, the old school, old soul, and maybe just old Randall here. Modern texting is the equivalent to old school phone calls. And yet it's faster, more direct, probably a little more informal, which has a positive and a negative outcome, which we're going to talk about here in a few minutes about how you can use that to your advantage. The bottom line is that if you're not texting, if you're not engaging with donors in these methods, if you're waiting for people to get back to you and not using texting as an affirmative way to get in front of people, you're already behind. And I have to be candid, it kind of hurts me to say that because I was one of the people thinking about just coming out of the Great Recession from 2008 or 9 to sometime in 12 or 13, saying, "Oh, no, I was wrong. It's just the way it is." So we want to try to break this down into several different pools. So how am I going to do this? So we're going to start moving into the tactical, which we try to do at every episode here on Around with Randall. We're going to talk about prospect identification and outreach. How do you do that? We'll take a jump into stewardship and how you might look at texting for that. We also want to talk about giving opportunities and talking a little bit about what that might mean. And finally, we're going to talk about the tech. What are some tools out there that you can use this for? So the first 3 are about relationships, and then giving a part of that. And then the last one is about the technology that can be a part of this. So let's start with prospect identification outreach. Maybe it's people you don't know. First and foremost, you need to have cell phones. More and more often, they're easily found through research. And this is why prospect management research is critically important to give gift officers the tools they need. And if you don't have it, you got to go do some digging on Google. But more often than not, cell phones can be found. There are several services that are out there, websites, free, that I can get into, and I've got them tagged in my bookmarks, where I can do a deep dive into people, and you might get a phone number or two, and you might have to try a couple of them. But if we're identifying prospects or beginning the relationship building process, the first thing that I would articulate is that texting alone is not enough. I believe that texting should be part of an arsenal of outreach and trying to get in front of people that include emails and phone calls. Everybody communicates differently. And so if you're using this proper process where you're calling, then emailing, then texting, you can use the texting in a referral point, as in, I've sent you an email or I've made a phone call and left a voicemail. And in doing so, it will shorten the text message. What you'll hear most often throughout this podcast as I give advice on this, as I've kind of thought about it, listened to clients talk to and with some people and also done the research, is the shorter the text, the more likely it is to be read. This is not the texting that we want in general that I do to my family or we do with each other, where they're long text sentences. You want to use proper grammar, which we'll get to in a moment, but you have to create short verbiage. People don't want to read a lot. So if you can use the texting as a mechanism to refer to something else, that shortens the amount of characters that you might use. So what does it look like for prospect identification? It could be, "Bob, I just left you a voicemail. Want to thank you for your donation. Just reaching out to talk with donors about why they think we're so important and what's important to them." It might be maybe they attended an event. "Gosh, Bob, thank you for attending our event. I'd love if we had a chance to chat. I'd love to hear more about what resonated with you most, why you came." It can be used for all kinds of things, but it shouldn't be meant in the introduction prospect identification stage as being used for deep conversations. It's for appointment setting. It's to gain access. And so if you start with that mentality, you will limit the number of characters because you're not trying to tell an entire story. It's to get access to either talk with them or, more importantly, get in front of them. So You want to have short, timely, personalized texts. I start almost every text, unless it's with my family, with a name. And Bob, it's Randall Hallett at your nonprofit. You'd be surprised how much easier that makes it for people to read. I use this on a personal level for people that I don't normally see or text that often because I don't want there to be a surprise. Oh, they know exactly who it is. Oh, I know what he or she wants. The second thing is that while your text should be short, timely, and personalized, it shouldn't be copy and paste spam or just constantly forwarding and or responding to your own self in follow-up to a text you sent that they didn't answer to. If you do that, that's how you get blocked. That's how you get called spam, and probably justifiably. What we need to do is concentrate on that access point and not just creating kind of a repetitious, boring copy-paste email or text in this case. Short, I would love to hear more. Something about them, something that connects them, their donation, their attendance. Maybe they were a grateful patient. You're following up. Dr. Smith wanted me to talk with you. Maybe it's educational. Hey, the dean's out talking with people, or Professor so-and-so wanted me to say hello to you. How do you make it personalized? The best group of people that this is good for is kind of those mid-level donors. I talk about mid-level giving, that it's a couple calls and maybe a cup of coffee if it's high enough. But texting can be a part of that in creating connection. And it's for emerging major donors. It's for trying to get in front of people. It's not meant to completely replace the voicemail, but as I mentioned, augment it in a positive way. So the first group of people we can use texting with is prospect identification or new relationships, trying to get in front of people. The second is impact, and this is all about stewardship. This one is the most underutilized aspect of texting, and I think the most vibrant. I'll tell you a story which has nothing to do with philanthropy. I attended a Nebraska football game here recently where they did a light show, which is full of, on the field, they put, I guess, cauldrons out or something, where flames come out, the lights all go down, everyone's got their cell phone lights on, there's a drone show, there's lights going all over the place. I mean, it's really kind of amazing. I videotaped, shows you how old I am. I recorded this on my phone for my daughter because she didn't attend the game too late, and she did things she loves. But what I thought about was that the rest of my family wasn't there, and we're kind of Nebraska homers and have attended enough games as a family in the years past, and none of them were there except for my son, that I sent it to my two sisters, my mom, my wife, my brothers-in-law, just for context. The reason I'm telling you this story is that it's kind of like stewardship. It was a 3-minute video clip of this light show. And the responses I got back from my sisters, in particular, and my mom, were like, that is unbelievable. Thank you so much. I felt like I was there. It's the same kind of thought process we have with stewardship. I wanted them to enjoy this as much as I was. I wanted my sisters, my mother, the family that I grew up with that had been attending these games for, more than a century, if we go back in the Halletts of the past, to feel that emotional connection. I wanted to share this kind of emotional center that I had with this particular moment with them. Well, I thought about it when I was putting this all together, and I thought that's exactly what stewardship is. How do you elicit emotion in wanting to share something that they were involved with? So these can be quick impact reports, a photo of a new lab, or maybe a new professor, or somebody teaching in a class that they've supported, or a scholarship recipient, a thank you note, a quick video of something. We want to follow all privacy. We're not looking to exploit anybody. We want to make sure all permissions are granted. But how cool is it to send something of that nature very quickly from a stewardship perspective? And with iPhones today, or Google phones, you can do this in simplicity. It's easy. Even something as simple as birthday messages. I'm finding myself sending more and more gifts, birthday messages. Hey, was thinking about you. You know your birthday's today. I'm going to do one here in a moment saying, I'm thinking about you. Hope you're having a great day. Simple, easy. You could do things like program milestones when something happens. Maybe again with that picture or something that says you were part of this. You made this happen. The idea is that you bring them into a space that they don't normally see, feel, or know by using texts. And this should be done constantly. How easy is this? And yet, I don't think it is elevated to the level it should be. What it's all about is reinforcing that donor's impact and connection. And that shows a kind of a sense of attentiveness that comes with that relationship, but it doesn't take a lot of immense time in this process. Texting for stewardship can elevate relationships. It's not a substitute for that individual conversation, as we've talked about in other podcasts, that really stewardship is another term that should be overlaid with cultivation. But it's an additional emotional connection that might be useful. The third major area that we want to talk about before getting into some of the kind of the technical, tech-driven ways to use this is the idea of giving. Now, this is probably not going to be used for a $100,000 gift, so I want to be honest up front. But from a leadership annual giving perspective or an annual giving ship perspective, what a great way to give people an opportunity to be engaged at a level they may not have thought of the previous moment. If the open rate is 98%, as we discussed earlier, sometimes lives are just busy and people forget. Giving Tuesdays. Hey, did you know it's Giving Tuesday? Just a reminder, you can match that gift with a double impact match that we have going currently. Or that you can find a way of connecting someone's previous gifts to elevate. Maybe it's you gave them enough money to sponsor one student's summer stipend or program. Would you do a second? You could do follow up on pledges. Could be highly effective at year end. It might actually be in the major gift conversation, probably more on the stewardship side. But hey, your pledge payments due here at the end of the year. What can I do to help you get that done? Here's a link to do it online, credit card, or I'll be glad to come by and pick up a check. All of these are ways in which you can nudge people towards a gift. Now, there's a couple things you need to realize in this process, and I would call it discretion, that should be paramount. Number one is this is when a relationship already exists. This is where nonprofits have got themselves in trouble when they're blasting out text messages, I'd say emails as well, to people they have no idea, and we get a bad name. This is when we have a relationship, when we want to do this text for giving opportunity. It's not meant as a blanket. It's meant as a relationship enhancer. And number two, it can't be pushy. It's just got to be a reminder. Hey, here's an option. Take advantage of it. We're good. It's almost as if you're saying, if you don't respond or don't do what I say, everything's still totally okay between our relationship with the organization. This is really important in smaller organizations as well, because you can use this texting effort as a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign with volunteers. So it's a way to expand your horizon with people, again, that you already know, or that your, let's say, fundraising captains or committee or whatever, board, already know. Giving opportunities in the world of digital giving is just where we're all going to land. Most of us have already kind of gotten there. It's amazing. I do all of our philanthropic giving now online, all of it. And I am not Mr. Technology, as if you've listened to any podcast or have probably the unfortunate distinction of knowing me, would say, oh, Randall doesn't know anything about this. This is not his go-to thing. So use it as an opportunity to remind, not to push. I want to spend just a couple minutes in closure talking about technology that exists. This has been an amazing jump in the last, particularly 5 years, but I'd say 10 overall in terms of what technology's out there. There are the simple things. Many CRMs now include some type of, it's a custom additive solution or add-on. It may cost you just a little bit of money, but it's an add-on to your CRM that you can do texting as a part of it. Now, in that vein, I find it to be more basic, not as the ability to craft individualize is a little more challenging depending on the system. So it's something to keep in mind, but you should start with, if cost is a consideration and time, asking the question, does our CRM possibly provide this opportunity? There are texting online platforms you can use, not quite apps per se, but if you're a small nonprofit and you don't have a lot of staff time, you can look at things like Textedly or Easy Texting that provide mass texting and personalization as a part of that. Again, got to be careful where you use these in the 3 areas we discussed, whether it's an individual relationship and or already established relationship versus just blasting things out. Through text and get through, those are 2 separate, are good for one-on-one texting if you don't want to use your individual cell phone number. So it provides a platform to do so. Twilio is for organizations, and these are custom-based solutions where you've got a kind of a developer tech lead who's helping you build out customized texting. So if you're trying to do a lot of, let's say, a campaign, and you want there to be a lot of videos going out to donors or prospects that are more mass, but they look more individualized, this is a project or service. And I'm not here to endorse one over another. I'm just giving you examples. The point is that there's technology out there to help you. By the way, not very expensive. So you've got multiple options. You've got your own cell phone. Got that? Putting in the text, taking videos. You've got online platforms that can do it to help you build relationships through texting with identification of or entry into the relationship, as we talked about, getting that time in front of someone, stewardship, making them feel emotionally connected in a quick and meaningful way, and then also the giving opportunities, probably not on the highest end, but on the mid-level and maybe some reminders, but also on our annual giving platforms. All of this is to bring us to the final thought. I was wrong. I've said this 2 or 3 times. You got to use texting to your advantage. It's another arrow in your quiver of options to build out the ability to deepen relationships. And that's the important piece of this. It's another tool in that long-term transformational giving process that we aim for. And I'll take anything legal and ethical that allows me to do that and to help my clients do that with their donors. Don't forget to check out the podcast here. You can go back. There's more than 250 of them now on any platform you download, certainly on YouTube. Also recommend checking out the blogs at hallettphilanthropy.com. 2 per week or so of different things that I see, read, hear. Might be leadership related, maybe philanthropy related, or a combination thereof. And if you'd like to talk with me, that's podcast at hallettphilanthropy.com. Philanthropy is something that I take for granted because it's almost now part of my existence, that I live and breathe it every day, and am thankful to my creator for the opportunity to serve in the philanthropic way or the fundraising way with the clients that I am privileged to work with. And I look back on the 18 years as a practitioner and much in the same vein. At the end of the day, our world needs philanthropy to fill that gap that I always talk about between the corporate world, the for-profit world that doesn't want to do certain things, there's no money to make, and government, which doesn't do things efficiently. And there's nonprofits in the middle that kind of partner with both or some that make a difference. And you're one of those people, whether a board member, a head of school, a CEO, a gift officer, you're in the infrastructure team, prospect management research. you are someone who makes things happen. One of the three things I always talk about. Some people make things happen. Some people watch things happen. Then there are those who wondered what happened. You're someone who makes things happen for the people and places and things in our community that are wondering what happened. I hope you feel it in your bones like I do. That's a part of who you are professionally. Because at the end of the day, there's no better way to spend a career. I can't imagine doing anything else because this is my way. Small, tiny, not earth-shattering, but my way, hopefully your way, of making your world, your community, a better place. We'll look forward to seeing you the next time, right back here on the next edition of Around with Randall. Don't forget, make it a great day.